All America, all the time. Sit down, buckle up, and get ready for the Dan Bongino Show.
Good morning and welcome to the Dan Bongino Show again on this Tuesday, July 28th. You got to love it. Not Dan Bongino. I got scolded for saying it's your boy, Shawn Farash. So what I'm going to say is it's your boy. All right, there it is. You tell me not to do something, I'm going to continue to do it. Got scolded for saying, don't say that. I won't take you serious. Okay, fine. Happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to the Dan Bongino Show. Obviously, Dear Diary, right? The Fauci diary is out. And it is, I can't believe that this guy literally wrote, in the diary, all the stuff that I'm saying on television is BS, but they all believe me, and I'm famous, and I'm a rock star, and this is great, and, all those different. We have so much to get to at the Fauci diary because it impacted all of us. No matter what state you were in, at some point in time, there was some of that madness that impacted you during the COVID era. But for me in New York, in 2020, while this was at its peak, holy smokes, that guy was judge, jury, and executioner. So we're going to spend a lot of time on the Fauci diary. We've got an interesting concept, by the way, regarding the diary that we'll get to a little bit. A possible humorous little bit that we could put together. Excited about it. Zoran the Moron, New York City strikes again. Doxing residents? What is he doing? And wait until you find out the people who he actually doxed with this new, as the New York Post calls it, pied de terror tax, right? Pied de terror, whatever. He's using French terms. I don't know what he's doing. Zoran Mamdani, but doxing residents of New York City. And in the second half of the show, we'll also get to the advantage that the Republicans are taking into the midterms financially. Donald Trump wants John Thune to nuke the recess and the filibuster, and a whole lot more on the way. Appreciate everybody stopping in yesterday and enjoying the show. We're back here today as well. Reminder, August 17th, Shawn Farash Live. Shawn Farash Live kicks off here on Silverlock. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts and Spotify by searching for Shawn Farash Live. And you can go to rumble.com/Shawn. That's where the show is going to air, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Weekdays, Bongino.com/SHAWN. You got to spell it right. There's no excuse at this point. You got to spell it right. Make sure you do that and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. Bongino.com/Shawn for all that information, all those platforms and places to subscribe. We would greatly appreciate that. All right. Before we get started and roll into all the good stuff this morning, I got to talk to you about our friends over at Byrna. Here's a question I get asked all the time. How do I help protect my family without taking a life? Let me tell you about Byrna, Byrna. I've got a Byrna they sent me, and let me tell you, I trust it. Byrna's less lethal launcher fires powerful, kinetic and chemical rounds that can incapacitate an attacker for up to 30 minutes. That could give you time to get away and call for help. Byrna's new compact launcher is about the size of a smartphone. It is easy to carry, easy to use, and there's no background check required. The Byrna CL fires up to 400 feet per second with serious stopping power and was designed to help with de-escalation, not devastation. Byrna is proudly American, assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana. More than 750,000 Byrna launchers are already in the hands of law enforcement and responsible citizens who want protection without tragedy. If you believe in being prepared and you also believe in restraint, Byrna is for you. Go to byrna.com and learn more. That is byrna.com. Thank you, Byrna, for being a part of the show. All right, let's go. There it is. There's the opening bell. It is time to get into the Fauci diary. This guy, let me 30,000 feet. We'll start here. Is there, let me get my thing ready here. Was there anybody during COVID who was more full of shit than Anthony Fauci? Anybody? I mean, maybe like Andrew Cuomo, right? The virus does not come out after 12 midnight or you have to stay home. The guy was an absolute mess. Everyone taking their marching orders from that gremlin from Harry Potter's bank? Is that Fauci? That's those gremlins? They look like him. The elves? He looks like one of them. Or Dobby. Dobby looked more like former New York Giants coach Tom Coughlin, if you ask me. But anyway, Anthony Fauci, the experts. That was one of my favorite things, too, in the COVID era. Trust the expert. They told me, you must trust the experts. And I said, well, it's interesting because how come I can't ask the experts a question? How come the experts can't demonstrate their expertise? Well, those seem to be reasonable things to ask. No, you can't do that. It's misinformation. You're going to kill grandma. It's going to be a super spreader event, right? And then what did we see in the spring of 2020? All the riots, right? The protests, everybody in close quarters, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, the whole 9 yards. And you had people coming out saying, well, you could protest that, but you can't protest reopening the country. As if the virus chooses who it's going to infect, smartest virus in the world. And those of us in the world who, have a working brain, have a couple brain cells that are rubbing together, create a little heat, create a little fire, create a little energy, right? Get you going, a little enthusiasm down the Haley Stevens road. Those of us have a working brain and an IQ above that of the average Somali or Canadian for that matter. And I'm going to get so much crap for that. Stop making fun of Canada. No, I can't help it. I can't help it. I can't help it. Those of us who have a working brain and a couple brain cells that, we could rub together to make some heat, realize this guy was full of crap right off the bat. 6 feet. Where'd you come up with that one? You got to stay 6 feet apart, not 5 feet apart. You know why that happened, right? Because they had to implement the same rules all around the world. And it's hard in places that use the metric system to convert 5 feet into meters. It would have been like 1.722 or something. But 6 feet isn't even 2 meters. Yeah. There was no rhyme or reason about the distance. Okay, about the social distancing. Remember the one-way, if you guys lived in a state that did this, remember the one-way shopping aisles? That was a thing in New York for a little bit. Actually, really funny is I went up to upstate and I grabbed a pair of sunglasses, these party or whatever, Memorial Day, and you can flick them on and they flash red, white, and blue. I actually pulled people over in a supermarket for going the wrong way in the one-way aisle. And I went behind them and turned them on and went, woo! And they turned around like thinking Ric Flair was behind them, right? The nature boy. And they were like, what? I said, do you know why I'm pulling you over? They looked at me like I was crazy. And in upstate, everyone has a gun. So you see them slowly start to reach for it. And I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. But I did actually do that. It's kind of funny. With the one-way shopping aisles, the social distancing, hand sanitizer everywhere. It's like, yeah, I get it. We should want to be clean. That's okay. But it got ridiculous. You can't gather in groups of more than 10. So you know what we did on Long Island? We were protesting this in the fall, early winter of 2020. Us, the whole loud majority group, thousands of people, took a picture with a giant sign that says, we identify as a group of 10 people or less. And then we sent it to Andrew Cuomo as a Christmas card. It was nice. We tormented that guy. That guy hated us. And then he got ran out of the office. And now the bucktooth Botox bandit of Buffalo, Kathy Hochul, the wicked witch of the Northeast. She's the new governor of New York. Horrible. She's horrible. She can't even get... What happened?
I was going to say, did you see what Kevin posted?
No.
Where she's like helping at the train, the train track, I guess, or something. She's like, dink, 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 like...
Oh, God. I can't with this woman. She's grilling in a white dress. She can't get Buffalo Bills fans to chant, let's go Buffalo. Let me just explain something to you. We're way off but Kathy Hochul is so unlikable and so not charismatic. If you can't get a group of Buffalo Bills fans to chant, let's go Buffalo. This is a fan base, by the way, that lights themselves on fire and jumps through folding tables at their tailgate party. They will do anything for their team. And she was, let's go Buffalo! And nobody chanted with her because nobody likes Kathy Hochul. How does she keep getting elected? New York City, that's how. Democrats would vote for anybody. They'd vote for a pair of sweaty gym socks if it ran as a Democrat. It's the truth. I'm from there. I know about it. It's crazy. It's embarrassing. New York used to be a cool, nice place to be, and now it's a hellhole. And New York was one of those states that fell right in line with that little gremlin, Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci, his stupid, gritty, grovelly New York Senator Paul, you have no idea what you are talking about, right? You have to stay 6 feet apart. It hurts me to do that. Fauci lied about everything. We knew he was lying because it never made any logical sense. But he wrote in the diary. He has an actual log that we now have access to. Dear diary, I was lying about quite literally everything. Let's start here. Breitbart article. Fauci diary shows he lied to the public about the coronavirus fatality rate. So we were told at the very beginning, super scary virus. And I remember listening to Dan Bongino back in the day going, hold on, wait a minute. Why are we getting scared? We don't know the real fatality rate here. We don't know what the R0 is. We don't know a lot. Everyone's getting scared, hiding under their couch, like that episode of SpongeBob. Remember that episode of SpongeBob where he stays in his house with the chip and the napkin and the penny, and those were his friends, and he never went outside, indoors. Remember that? Where he busted his ass skiing, and that was the whole thing. He was afraid to go outside. Everyone turned into that. Making friends with napkins and potato chips and pennies. I knew people who were some of the most devout Republicans, and they got totally emasculated by this thing. Oh my gosh, I don't want to go. I don't want to get this virus. Why would you still go out? Why are you traveling? Because it's a cold. I'm not saying it wasn't serious. And I'm not saying it didn't kill people. And I'm not saying it couldn't have been a serious infection. But to shut down everything? The schools, the jobs, small businesses. You had a death clock on all the major mainstream media networks. And you had this guy essentially calling the shots and lying about it. So he admits in his diary, the Fauci diary shows he lied to the public about the coronavirus fatality rate. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be looking at this going, all right, you're pointing out that he lies. We already know that he lies. What are we going to do about it? Well, unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's not really much that we can do except hold him accountable in the court of public opinion because he does have that auto pen pardon. And I know a lot of people want to say, well, Trump said they're invalid. And I get it. And I'm all for looking into the legalities of an auto pen pardon, which I don't believe there's a challenge there, unfortunately, because the Constitution, believe it or not, the Constitution, if you read the pardon clause, the Constitution doesn't even say that a pardon even has to be signed by a president, right? Technically. They do that because it serves as a receipt. The only, I think, angle that could be challenged with regards to like the Fauci pardons and some of these auto pen pardons isn't the auto pen itself, but it's the fact that like the crimes that they're being pardoned of weren't specified. Even when Jimmy Carter gave out blanket pardons for Vietnam draft dodgers, they were granted pardons for draft dodging. These don't have specific crimes. It's just like, yeah, anything that happened between this time and this time, pardon. But the auto pen itself isn't as unethical and as effed up as this is. I don't think the auto pen pardons are going to get overturned because they were signed with an auto pen. And I know that's not what anybody wants to hear. And I'm going to get roasted for it. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm just reading from the Constitution. It doesn't make a specification. The president's power to pardon is so broad, it doesn't make a specification. So unfortunately, at the federal level, there may not be much that can happen to Anthony Fauci regarding what he did during the COVID years. However, if he is called to testify again, and I think he's supposed to appear again soon, if he's called to testify again and he lies again, then you can go after him federally, 100%. But it's important in the court of public opinion to convict this guy of lying to the public and convict this guy of, whatever public charge we want to convict him of. Because he's told the public that the COVID death rate was between 2 and 2.5%. But privately in his diary, he wrote that it was more like 0.2 or 0.3%. So he quite literally 10x'd the severity and fatality rate of this virus in front of a camera. But in his little composition notebook, he was like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Explosive revelation found in Fauci's personal diary documenting his day-to-day. Thank God, by the way, he kept this diary. Right? Like, he clearly thought he was untouchable. For the most part now, because of the auto pen pardon, he is. But He clearly thought so highly of himself that he was going to log. Look at what I'm doing to them now. Look at the lies I'm telling them now. His personal diary documenting his day-to-day duties in the early days of the Trump administration's coronavirus response. Rand Paul, I love it. I used to like Rand Paul a lot more. Then he got a little kind of wishy-washy this term. But he's always been rock solid on the Fauci stuff. Dr. Fauci, you lied to Congress. Rand Paul is the chairman of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, released a diary ahead of Fauci's appearance before the committee. In February of 2020, Fauci recorded the number of cases as well as his many media appearances. He also surmised the mortality rate of the virus was more like 0.2 to 0.3% rather than 2%. The entry reads, Tom Frieden called me this AM, and we discussed various aspects of the outbreak. He and I are on the same page, thinking that this is acting like a bad influenza in its transmissibility, and that the denominator is much greater than 34,867, making the case fatality rate more like 0.2 to 0.3% rather than 2%. So you were told 2% of people who are contracting the virus are dying. Meanwhile, it was 0.2 to 0.3%. In other words, that figure that we used to cite, the 99.98% survival rate, bingo, right there in his diary in February of 2020. This is before the 15 days to slow the spread that went on for like 500 days. This is before all the lockdowns. This is before all the school closures. So he knew. But then in March, he goes on Sean Hannity and says that the mortality for the coronavirus is about 2 and 2.5%. So after he writes this entry in his diary in February, he's on Fox News on Sean Hannity's show, lying to us, scaring us under the couch, scaring us out of our jobs, scaring us away from our families, terrifying children, closing schools. You got people making a run on toilet paper. This never made sense to me, by the way. 15 days to slow the spread, right? A 2-week quarantine if you got COVID. And so you need 96 rolls of toilet paper. You need that now for the Cyclo Runny Booty thing that's going on right now. You need 96 rolls of toilet paper now for your Taco Bell.
Runny booty.
Cyclo runny asses. They call it cyclosporiasis. No, cyclo runny, right? I mean, that's what you need. By the way,
What?
people getting shocked by the revelation that Taco Bell causes that. Where you been?
Yeah, that's been going on for quite some time.
I mean,
that's a cleanse.
Yeah, that's what I said. In my opinion, like that's one of the utilities of Taco Bell. I don't need to drink, Senna. I don't need a Miralax. I could just go get a, Crunchwrap Supreme, call it a day. It tastes good. We got an exit strategy in about a couple hours. We're all good to go. It's an exit strategy. The mortality, he says here, Fauci, the mortality for seasonal flu is 0.1. The mortality for this is about 2 to 2.5%. It's probably lower than that. It's probably closer to 1. But even if it's 1, it's 10 times more lethal than the seasonal flu. Meanwhile, wrong. Meanwhile, he admits in his diary that he was lying. The same month, testifying before Congress, Fauci touted those same figures again. Well, I understand the seasonal flu that we deal with every year has a mortality of 0.1%. He said when you look at the data, including China, it's about 3% for COVID. It started off as 2, now 3. I think if you count all the cases of minimally symptomatic or asymptomatic infection, that probably brings the mortality rate down to somewhere around 1, which means it's 10 times more lethal than the seasonal flu. But he was lying. It wasn't 10 times more lethal than the seasonal flu. And what happened to the seasonal flu? But no one wants to talk about that too. The seasonal flu went on vacation during COVID. Remember? Flu cases, they went from like a normal number, they're gone. Everyone only had COVID only. Now we don't test for COVID anymore. The flu's back. What did influenza go to COVID and say, can you cover my shift for a couple of years? I gotta take some time. And then COVID went away. All right, it's all yours. Give the baton back to the flu. It's unbelievable. And they expect us to believe this crap. Why is there a lack of trust in the institution, specifically big pharma and medicine? This is why. And we've got a boatload of video to go through here when it comes to this. So I'm going to start with this one. Yeah, this is a whole montage. Because everyone might remember, what did Trump say? It came from China.
Wait.
The China virus. Oh, you got it. Yeah, she's got it. Wait, hold on.
China.
Yeah, play it again.
It comes from China.
It comes from China. We call it the China virus, the Wu flu, the Kung flu. Everybody was Kung flu fighting, right? Nobody wanted to talk about it. Fast as lightning. Think about it. Kung flu. I remember somebody asked him about that in the press conference, and they were like, "There's rumors that you were talking amongst your staff and calling it the Kung flu." And he goes, "What are they calling it?" And they repeated it. He was doing that just to get them to say it one more time. You see the look on his face. He's like, "Yeah, you're eating out of the palm of my hand, baby. That's it." But everyone was like, "Well, remember that? What was the original narrative? Where did the COVID come from? It was China, but it came from what? Remember the original narrative? Wet market. What animal specifically?
Bat.
A bat. Right? And I looked at that and said, that is bat soup crazy. They said bat soup, quite literally, a bowl of Campbell's chicken noodle soup, possibilities with a bat in it. That caused the craziest pandemic in the history of the world, which really wasn't that crazy. But they were hyperventilating of. You expect me to believe it was from bat soup? Okay, let's even go a step further. They said blaming China for the virus, calling it the China virus, or it's the China virus. Think about it, the China virus. The Wu flu, the Kung flu. That's stoking anti-Chinese racism. But blaming something that you think Chinese people do, i.e. bat soup, that's not Chinese racism. I think, didn't you even have people saying, like, stay out of Chinatown? Okay.
I think a lot of Chinese people had a lot of, like mean people being mean to them.
because you had the mainstream media blaming, they were stereotyping Chinese people. Go, well, they eat bats. That's how this, what? They those people eat bats, That's how this whole thing happened. Bat soup. Come on. Anyone who believed the bat soup theory, you'll believe anything. By the way, you believe the bat soup theory? I got a bridge to sell you. It costs about $1 gajillion. A gajillion is not a number, but I want $1 gajillion. I'll tell you when to stop paying me, and then you can have the bridge, okay?
Don't fall for it.
There it is. Don't fall. I love that one. All right, let's get it. Because it was not obvious from the start, but it was obvious that that bat soup didn't cause the pandemic. And so then the theory started coming out, was like, well, hold on a second. Don't we fund this like gain of function research? Don't we fund this this whole, we alter the virus and we study them? And isn't there a lab in Wuhan called the Wuhan Institute of Virology where they do coronavirus research? Yeah, there is. So could it possibly have gotten out of there? No. That's impossible. It had to have come from bat soup, wet market, a pangolin, spent too much time near the bat and something happened. Yeah. Oh, okay. Got it. Let's roll this one. COVID misinformation on the lab leak theory, because privately, Anthony Fauci and his little team of experts, again, they weren't repeating what they were telling the mainstream media to repeat. Let's roll it.
He can't just sit back and let the doctors and the scientists do their jobs. He's got to chime in.
He may pick up the conspiracy theory that this was some weapon.
People don't keep bats in captivity. Complete baloney.
We don't need to invoke conspiracy theories.
This is just another example of the president trying to change the narrative from his own failings.
The problem for President Trump is that he's running for re-election, is looking for ways to deflect blame for the performance of the administration.
If you look at the evolution of the virus in bats, and what's out there now is very, very strongly leaning towards this could not have been artificially or deliberately manipulated.
So I wanted to ask, are you still confident that it developed naturally?
No, actually, that's the point that I said. No, I'm not convinced about that. I think that we should continue to investigate what went on in China.
Isn't that interesting? It's interesting. He waited till 2021 to kind of go, well, I don't know if it was actually natural. But while we were saying, I don't think this is natural, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're undermining faith in you are the one undermining faith in institutions because you were lying and then not correcting the record. It's one thing if you genuinely got it wrong. So take weather, for example. You have this, there's going to be rain today, and then it doesn't rain, and everyone gets mad. Oh, the weather guy, they get paid to be wrong all the time. it's not easy to predict the weather, right? Like that's not an easy job. Okay. And I'm not saying what Fauci did or, the job at NIAID or wherever it is, right? And all them, that's not easy either. Okay. It's one thing to like genuinely, authentically get something wrong. Hey, I think it's going to rain today. Oops, there was actually no rain. It missed it, whatever, right? And then come back and analyze where your forecast went wrong and all that. It's another thing to deliberately lie about something. And that is exactly what Anthony Fauci was doing. And that's what the diary proves. And that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not that we're hitting him for making a mistake, an actual mistake, an incidental mistake. That's not what I'm upset with Anthony Fauci for. I am upset with him for purposefully lying to us. And now we know he was purposefully lying to us beyond any sort of reasonable doubt because he wrote about it in his stupid diary. Dear diary, I bullshitted the American people again on CNN today, right? Like it might as well be what it says. This is from Kanakoa the Great on X. And it's summarized perfectly. February 1st, 2020, the secret call that produced, remember that paper, the Proximal Origins paper? 12 scientists on the line. Only 2 out of 12 thought the virus was natural. 2 out of 12. The other 10, per Anthony Fauci's own notes, felt that deliberate insertion was possible. Moreover, they flagged someone by the name of Xi Zheng's, wait for it, gain of function research on coronaviruses in Wuhan by name. Jon Stewart, who I don't like. But he even at some point in time was like, this is ridiculous. There is a lab in Wuhan, China. It came from China. I get along well with China. I get along well with President Xi of China. He looks like Winnie the Pooh. He says to me, sir, please stop calling me Winnie the Pooh. I said, you're going to have to stop looking like Winnie the Pooh if you want me to stop calling. He looks just like Winnie the Pooh. You know what? That's actually, Winnie the Pooh is banned in China because people were memeing it too much. That's a true story. Jon Stewart has a joke and was like, so there's a lab in Wuhan where this virus first, the first outbreak was. And the lab is called the Wuhan Institute of Virology and Coronavirus Research or something. Like the lab is almost essentially named what the virus is named. And you had an outbreak there. But they expected you to believe that had no bearing on what happened. That bat soup caused this. And Stewart in this joke actually made a reference and said, that's like saying if you're in Pennsylvania in a little town called Hershey and there's chocolate all over the highway and being like, well, gee, I wonder where that came from. There's no way it came from the Hershey's chocolate factory out there. Maybe a bat dropped all that chocolate on the road, right? Like, it was ridiculous. This is February 1st, 2020. This is a month and a half. A month and a half before 15 days to slow the spread. The first lockdowns. And you had 10 out of, what is the percentage? I'm so bad at math. 10 out of 12. Let me do this here. Get this math up there. 10, well, if it wants to work. 10 out of 12 is 83% of you guys on the call. These doctors believed that deliberate insertion was possible, that it could have come from a lab, and they flagged the gain of function work at the coronavirus lab in Wuhan as a possible source, and yet you have this guy going on the media, no, this came from naturally occurring viruses in bats. He says, I heard these conspiracy theories, and like all conspiracy theories, Newt, talking to Newt Gingrich, they're just conspiracy theories. Then after Fauci issued that edict, remember what Facebook and Twitter did? If you said that this came from a lab, you were banned. Your account was shut down. Suppressed. That wasn't allowed to come out. Turns out he pressured his recipients of grants to nominate him for other awards and things. Quote, hey, if I award you hundreds of millions of billions of dollars in grants, will you nominate me for this lucrative award? Basically what he was saying. So much corruption. And we knew it was BS from the start. The problem is so many people got scared. Here's Star Wars, right? Our guys love Star Wars. Remember Tarkin on the Death Star? Fear will keep the local systems in line, right? Fear of this battle station. And Darth Vader is like, the power to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force. But that's the point. It was fear. Fear kept everybody in line.
And free French fries.
And then the vaccine, free French fries and hamburgers and donuts and all sorts of stuff. Fear. He was allowed to go on the media and scare the daylights out of you and everybody. And then you're afraid, you don't know what to do, so you're looking to someone for guidance, and you have Anthony Fauci, and he's the expert, and the media is repeating, trust the experts, and everyone's doing this. It's 15 days to slow the spread. You're going to kill grandma, and this is a serious thing. And we wound up where we wound up. That's why things got so bad in New York, because Andrew Cuomo took the advice of that little gremlin. He's a nasty person, really nasty. Speaking of, rules for thee, not for me, etc. The rules that were in New York, you couldn't go out. Essential businesses only. That one really bothered me, the essential businesses. The government does not determine what is essential or non-essential. Who determines what is essential and non-essential? That would be the free market. You know what's a not essential business? You know what's a non-essential business? VCR repair stores. Why are VCR repair stores not essential? Because no one uses a VCR anymore. The market has determined we don't need that, so those don't exist. Barbershops were essential. They weren't considered essential, but they are essential. People need to get haircuts. Hardware stores, etc. I consider if your business services customers, your business is essential to those customers, and the government has no right to tell your business to shut down as long as it's operating within the confines of the law. Which a hardware store, a barber shop, a bar, a restaurant, those are clearly legal businesses. But you had Andrew Cuomo deciding what was essential and non-essential. Luckily, when I was working at Sherwin-Williams at the time, the lawyers for that company were able to find a loophole. We were allowed to stay open. And I know that there are some contractors who used to buy paint from me that listen to this show, and hopefully they're listening today. You know that our store was the place to be during the pandemic. We didn't really enforce the masks, right? We were supposed to keep customers out of the store, but we let contractors in who we liked. We're like, yeah, you can come in. It's no big deal. What's going to happen? Anyway, the rules that they set for us were rules that they didn't even follow. Here's another one on Breitbart. This is, Jake Tapper, fake Jake, right? Fauci and CNN, they wagged their finger at you. Don't you dare gather. No Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no birthday parties. Remember you had to do the birthday parades? You would have one kid sitting in a chair in the middle of the lawn. Nobody was near him because, scary virus. And you had people driving past the house, chucking presents at the kid. Getting into food fight. Here's cake. Go long. Go. And driving. It was insane. It's insane. No birthday party, no gatherings. You cannot go to the beach, even though you're outside and salt water is really good for you. Don't do that. You can't have small household gatherings, Anthony Fauci and CNN said. October 14th, 2020. Far-left CNN published a report warning about the dangers of small household gatherings. Quote, what we're seeing as the increasing threat right now is actually acquisition of infection through small household gatherings, and particularly with Thanksgiving coming up, we think it's really important to stress the vigilance of these continued mitigation steps in the household setting. The U.S. CDC and Prevention Director Dr. Robert Redfield told the nation's governors in a conference call Tuesday, according to audio of the call obtained by CNN. For example, reports for Vermont, Washington, and Delaware warned against community transmission, quote, in smaller gatherings of family and friends where masking and social distancing recommendations are not followed. Recommending, quote, increased messaging regarding the need to take these measures, especially given the element of prevention fatigue. Jake Tapper on CNN. This was Nick Watt, a CNN correspondent, said the following. There are masks, distancing regulations in many public places, but we're spreading the virus at small family gatherings, says CDC director. Got to be vigilant at Thanksgiving. Jake Tapper says, quote, on a call with reporters, Trump administration officials seem to be once again embracing the concept of herd immunity, touting Trump's push to reopen the country. One of your colleagues, William Hasseltine, said herd immunity is just another word for mass murder. Unbelievable that this was said. The idea of letting the disease work its way through the population estimates about 2 million Americans dying from it. Do you agree? Is herd immunity the same thing as mass murder? And they said it's terrible policy. They didn't really belong behind the words of mass murder. I think there are a lot of people who out there who think you just want to lock down the country again. That's not the case. What do you want to do other than mass avoiding crowds, social distancing? I mean, how do we go back to some semblance of normal while also protecting people? And this Dr. Ashish Jha says avoiding indoor gatherings. Well, wouldn't you know it? According to the Fauci diary, a week after that, October 23rd, 2020, page 170 of the Gremlin Diary. Had dinner at my home with Jake and Jennifer Tapper. Relaxed. Good time. Jake clearly believes that Trump is totally nuts. Hit 83,000 new cases today. The single-day record since the beginning of the outbreak. Surge continues. Fauci said just a few weeks later about the danger of Thanksgiving. We know for sure that people who are without symptoms innocently, with no malintention at all, go to a party or go to a gathering, gets together indoors. You let your guard down. You obviously have to take a mask off if you're eating or drinking. Try to avoid that as much as possible. While he was having dinners with Anthony Fauci. By the way, that was the second dinner that Tapper and Fauci had. The first was a few months earlier in July of 2020. Quote, had dinner over Jake Tapper and Jen Tapper's home in D.C. Terrific couple. Friendship building. Are you serious? That's like when, remember Nancy? Nancy, here's her teeth. That's the Nancy Pelosi memorial teeth, right? She goes off on the, Nancy Pelosi, I have to get my hair cut at a salon in Los Angeles or San Francisco, even though I'm not wearing a mask and the virus is out there and it's come from China. Nancy Pelosi was getting her hair done. Gavin Newsom was eating like a filet mignon with a bunch of his friends, no mask. But you had to wear the mask or you were relentlessly shamed. You were banned on social media. You were shunned by your family and friends. This was not a joke, the way people were handling this. While the elites like Tapper and Fauci and Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom and all these people, they were not abiding by the rules they expected you to live by, which is typical. They never passed their own tests. Ever. This diary, listen, I know everyone wants to see accountability. What are we going to do about it? You know, we already knew all these types of things. Here's the idea. Okay, we, you, me, us, those of us who are calling it out from the very beginning. Yes, we already know that. I'm not breaking new ground for you. I'm not breaking new ground for people who have similar political leanings as I do. But for moderates, independents who are like, oh, you guys are bad during COVID. You were so nasty to Anthony Fauci. Now we can take his actual Gremlin diary and say, okay, no hard feelings. Read this. Who was right and who was wrong? This guy lied to everybody. And the reason why this matters now is because it's definitive proof that he was lying. That will show the moderates, hey, next time you think what we're saying is a conspiracy theory, remember who was right about Anthony Fauci during COVID? It was us. And what we were saying makes perfect sense. Came from a lab. The distancing was nonsense. Masks don't work. You know what my rule was? This is kind of gross, but my rule with the mask was if you could smell a fart through the mask, it doesn't stop the virus. That was my rule of thumb. If I could smell you crop dust in a supermarket, and many people did it, it didn't stop the virus. It didn't. It's the truth. I have a picture of myself when they first did the mask mandates. I didn't have a mask because I had no reason to have one. But you had to have a face covering to go in the supermarket. Justin's going to love this. I may text him the picture, actually. I had a Darth Vader helmet on in the supermarket because that was the only face covering I had. That's not a joke. Not a joke. Not a joke, man. I'm going to send it to him. Let me see. There it is. I found it. I'm wearing my Real Tree sweatshirt, standing in Stop and Shop in New York with my Darth Vader. I walked around the supermarket with that on. Why? Because I didn't have a face. That's the only way I was not allowed in that supermarket without that on. Could you believe that?
I can't believe they let you in with it on.
They had to, because if I didn't have it on,
I know. I just feel like they would have turned you away.
No, I would have told them. I would have said to them, "I find your lack of faith disturbing," and I would have force choked them at the door. I got a lightsaber.
Hello there.
Yeah, come on. This was me at the supermarket. I don't know why it shows up orange on camera. It's supposed to be red. I just sent Justin the picture. Yeah, it's quite literally. I have a Darth Vader helmet on. I'm standing there, just like, yeah. People were looking at me like, what? It's like the scene from Return of the Jedi. Help me take this mask off. But you'll die. That's like from COVID. You'll die. Then I had actual face because you couldn't go into supermarkets without it. They would literally like hound you. So I had one that said Trump, and I was getting pork chops one day, and a lady saw the Trump mask and she Karen'd at me, and I was like, what? What's your problem? Well, your mask. I said, I could take it off. And I started coughing, and she freaked out and ran away. It's great. There it is. Like Justin, look at how quick he turned that around. Look at that. Right on the screen, Brian. Look. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Look how quick he turned that. That is me in a supermarket with the Darth Vader helmet on. Boom. I treated it like a joke the whole time because it was a joke the whole time. Look at that. It's perfect. Yeah. So then you have in the Fauci diary the dinners with Jake Tapper and his wife throughout the whole thing, right? Remember he was sitting at the baseball game with the mask down after he threw the first pitch, which was really bad. Fauci then decided it was a good idea to lie about school close. Remember, he closed the schools. And Andrew Cuomo, we are going to close. He took the longest to get through these sentences. We are going to close down all of your schools if your children don't wear masks in the classroom. So they closed the schools down, which honestly was a blessing in disguise for a lot of parents, because then the kids were doing Zoom school right at home. And the parents are sitting there going, hold on, what are they teaching you? Looking over the child's shoulder at the lessons in, Black Lives Matter and all that stuff on Zoom. So that kind of opened a lot of parents' eyes to how twisted and disgusting public school curriculum was. But Anthony Fauci lied about school closures. This on the Post-Millennial. Okay? Anthony Fauci wants you to believe that he never called for the school. He claims he had nothing to do with school closures. Matter of fact, let's hear it from that little gremlin himself, Anthony Fauci. He had nothing to do with school closures, so he says. Watch this.
Was it a mistake in so many states and so many localities to see schools closed as long as they were?
I think in some case, I don't want to use the word mistake, John, because if I do, it gets taken out of the context that you're asking me the question on.
Well, did we pay too high a price?
Yeah, I would say that what we should realize and have realized that there will be deleterious collateral consequences when you do something like that. This idea that this virus doesn't afflict children is not so. It does. We've lost close to 1,500 kids so far.
But much less than the older population, obviously.
Oh, of course. Yeah. But you shouldn't discount that it does afflict children. So it isn't without consequences. If you go back, and I ask anybody to go back over the number of times that I've said we've got to do everything we can to keep the schools open, no one plays that clip. They always come back and say Fauci was responsible for closing schools. I had nothing to do.
I mean,
let's get down to the facts.
Oh my gosh. But you wrote about in your diary about how you had everything to do with it. March 9th, 2020, Gremlin Diary. Governor Cuomo calls me up and asks my advice on whether to close schools in the Orthodox Jewish section of Westchester, where they have 90 cases, more than the rest of New York City. I tell him yes. But I had nothing to do with school closures. You had everything to do with school closures, and you wrote it in your freaking diary. This is the funniest thing because it is in plain English. Fauci, I had nothing to do with it. Diary. Governor Cuomo called me up and asked my advice on whether to close schools in the Orthodox Jewish section of Westchester, where they have 90 cases, more than the rest of New York City. I tell him yes. March 15th, 2020. Entry touted his press appearance. Then I said, I spoke with Bill de Blasio. That might be one thing. One time I feel bad for Anthony Fauci. I talked to de Blasio and convinced him, based on what I was saying publicly in my conversation saying close the New York City schools, close the New York City schools, sorry. He had already decided based on what I was saying on TV. He had already decided based on what I was saying on TV. Fauci, I had nothing to do with it. Diary, I had everything to do with it. De Blasio made his decision based off what I was saying. I went on to tell him that he should close the bars and restaurants in New York City. He said that he would base this on my recommendation. Fauci went on to say, I had a similar call with Ann O'Leary, the COS of Chief of Staff of Gavin Newsom's California. Ann said that based on my TV appearances today and yesterday, the governor has decided to close the schools in California as well as the bars and restaurants. But he just told Jonathan Karl, that fat cream puff of a man, that, oh, I had nothing to do with it. But in the diary, you're taking credit for it. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. In the diary, it also says, Trump wants to open the schools at all costs. Clearly, he does not care about the safety of children. But Fauci was not in favor of closing the schools. This diary is, this Fauci diary is so, and this is just the stuff that hit me the hardest, is New York, right? So I'm on that angle. I see the people sending me, the amount of stuff I've been sent, right? Oh, Fauci was excited that he was famous. He's the most famous person in the world. And all that stuff is terrible. But I'm focused on the actual, and I'm not saying that stuff's not significant because it is. I'm focused on the real world implications here, guys and gals. The real world implications here. The school shut down. The bars shutting down. The restaurants shutting down. The bars in New York. Oh my gosh. Let me go quick to the live chat. And I'm sure the comments go crazy every day. So it's hard to kind of look at it here. Anybody in the live chat? There's almost 35,000 people in here again, which, by the way, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. 35,000 on a Tuesday morning in the middle of summer. There's nobody better than the Bongino Army.
A lot of peepers.
It's a lot of peepers. But it's 35,000, 34,000. So
70.
Assuming that everyone has two eyes, hopefully all of you have two eyes.
My Grammy did not. So
right? So it could be, but I would say
she did. But
we have a maximum of potentially 68,000 eyes on this show right now.
A lot.
That's the top. That's the ceiling.
Yeah.
All right. But if there's any one eye, one word flying purple people eater. Anyway, anybody in New York in 2020, let me know in the chat. I'll try and see it. If anybody was in New York in 2020, let me know in the live chat. Because look at the chat going wild here. Look at that. Look at the chat going wild. I have three eyes. Wow. There's some people with three eyes. That's crazy. Yes, Sean, I remember Dawn Biz. She's from Long Island. That just scrolled by. And that's why we were able to pull off what we pulled off in New York. Yeah, I got a couple. Someone said, me. All right. So you guys know what I'm talking about. Do you remember the bizarre rule that Andrew Cuomo set for the bars and restaurants in New York City? You cannot order alcohol at a bar unless you also order food. Now, what was the purpose of that? That was to get people not to go, because then you got to spend more money. You could not just go to a bar and get a beer. Like Elizabeth Warren. Honey, want a beer? Stupid woman. You could not just go to a bar in New York, the whole state, and just get a beer. You had to order food as well. Well, most bars have bar food, right? Andrew Cuomo then, because people were like, hey, you know what goes good with beer? Buffalo chicken wings. Buffalo is a city in the state of New York. It's where people are born sideways, and it's where Kathy Hochul came from, but it is still a part of New York. I hereby propose that we give Canada Buffalo, we take Alberta. That's a great trade. People from Buffalo are going to be mad at me, but that's okay because they're born sideways. You know, you fan of a football team that can't win a Super Bowl. Boy, I love losing Super Bowls.
Says
Norwood.
the Jets fan.
We won a Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
1969.
Oh, a
Look at
long
that.
time ago.
Hell yeah. And by the way, if we did, you know, the Jets won the Super Bowl in 1969 in January. The New York Jets, Jets. If we didn't win that, so we won the Super Bowl, NASA was watching that. And they were like, you know, if the Jets can win a Super Bowl, we could definitely go to the moon. And then we landed in July. Neil Armstrong. One small step for man, one giant leap. It's a giant leap. So the only reason we were able to land on the moon is because the Jets won the Super Bowl. The Jets served as the final inspiration for NASA.
We definitely didn't land on the moon.
Brennan thinks we didn't land on the moon.
I think that's such a load of bullcrap.
She's a Kubrick basement. Like, there's no way we went. Yeah. She thinks we didn't land. She's a moon landing truther.
It was a beautiful
movie set.
A movie set.
Yeah. And sometimes we see the moon. That's a nice projection.
That's a great projection.
Like it's a bat signal. All right. I want to get into more. We got to get into more Fauci. So we're gonna run through some of these videos rapid fire now. Cuomo with the rules, the bars, the restaurant, but Fauci wants you to know that he didn't have anything to do with it. Cuomo said that buffalo wings didn't count as food if you ordered it at a bar. So now not only was he the arbiter of what was essential and not essential, but he was also declaring what was and was not food. Good news for people on Weight Watchers. If you ate, buffalo chicken wings during the COVID pandemic, those calories apparently didn't count because, I don't know, Andrew Cuomo said it wasn't food. That's great. But you know what he did say counted as food? Soup. This is not a lie. This is something that actually happened. Tomato soup, chicken noodle soup, whatever, was food. Buffalo wings was not food. In the name of science. Okay, let's do an experiment. I say we lock Andrew Cuomo in a room and feed him nothing but soup for a week. And then we lock another person in a room and feed them, maybe his brother, Chris, and lock him in a room and feed him nothing but buffalo wings for a week. Who's going to be in better shape at the end of the week? Probably the guy who's eating the protein-rich, fat-rich buffalo chicken wings, not the guy drinking flavored water. Oh, goodness. Speaking of this Tapper dinner, it sure looks like Anthony Fauci had CNN wrapped around his finger. I want to play this one. Here's Anthony Fauci. Apparently, he called Chris Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo's brother, daily. This is from Maze Moore on X. He's got a ton of clips. Let's roll this one. Is that Fauci?
Why do I know what Tony Fauci thinks? I've known him a lot of my life, but I've never known him the way I know you through this pandemic. I have spoken to you almost without exception every day. And you have been calling me out of personal concern to make sure that I'm okay, that my wife was okay, that my son was okay. 11 o'clock at night, later, waiting for my show to end, Saturday, Sunday morning, the rare time you have with your family. Why?
Well, first of all, because you're a friend. I mean, we have a professional relationship, but you're a friend. I've known you since, I hate to say it, since you were almost a kid.
Yeah, nothing to see here. Just buddy with the same mainstream media that allowed him to lie without any pushback. He had him wrapped around his finger. It's unbelievable. I got so much more. We're not going to be able to get to all of it, but we're going to get to a lot of it. But before we start getting to it, I want to get to a word from our good friends over at Folds of Honor. Every day, our heroes answer the daily call to service, putting themselves on the line to protect our freedoms, our communities, and our country. And behind every folded flag and retired uniform is a family that continues to carry the weight of their sacrifice long after the mission is complete. Folds of Honor exists to walk beside the spouses and children of fallen or disabled military service members and first responders by providing educational scholarships, Their service left a lasting impact on our nation, and it's on us to ensure that their families are not forgotten. Folks, Folds of Honor. For many recipients, Folds of Honor Scholarship means more than financial assistance. It represents stability during uncertain times, encouragement to pursue dreams, and, and a reminder that a grateful nation is standing behind them every step of the way. The mission of Folds of Honor is truly life-changing, and monthly donations play a key role in the continuation of providing opportunity to these deserving families. Join Folds of Honor today by becoming a monthly donor at foldsofhonor.org. Once again, foldsofhonor.org to become a monthly donor, foldsofhonor.org. Thank you, Folds of Honor, being a part of the show. Let's jump in. Let's go a little rapid fire on some of this Fauci stuff because, as you could tell, it really gets me fired up. And so I'm sitting here just yelling about it, but I want to play the evidence. We got to play the evidence. So this is going to be the last bit of the Fauci stuff, but I want to go back to Maze-Moore. And Maze-Moore put out this beautiful video, right? Absolutely phenomenal, of the mainstream media networks, Anthony Fauci, etc., talking about vaccine misinformation. Remember, safe and effective. It stops the virus. Here's a funny one. This is a bunch of people on, I said mainstream media, CNN, actually. I believe it's on CNN. And they're talking about this vaccine. And then you have Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who comes on and tells you all the beautiful things about this vaccine. Let's roll this Maze-Moore clip. This is brilliant.
There's so much misinformation online and at other channels
it's the dinner
about
buddies.
Vaccines and coronavirus. Are you worried that all that misinformation could lead to vaccine hesitancy among some teens now eligible for the vaccine?
I'm very disturbed by that, Jake. I mean, my goal and the goal of my colleagues is to protect the health and the safety and the welfare of the American public from a medical and health standpoint. And misinformation that gets in the way of the proper implementation of the things you need to do to stay healthy is very disturbing.
What I would say is that the science, I think, has been clear for some time on not only how well these vaccines work, as you alluded to, but also how well they protect you, how well they work in terms of preventing you from getting sick, but also how well they work in terms of preventing you from becoming infected. And most importantly, and most recently, how well they work in terms of making it unlikely you would pass the infection on to someone else. Even if you tested positive for the virus after you've been vaccinated, which does happen, rarely, but does happen, the data is now increasingly clear that you'd be very, very unlikely to then transmit the virus to somebody else.
Sanjay Gupta. Guys, all of what he said was bullshit. All of it. All of it. It stops you from getting sick. Oh, well, some of you get sick, but it's rare. Rare? I know people who got vaccinated who got COVID more than me, but it's rare. If you get sick, you can't spread the virus. That's an interesting talking point. How does that work? You have the virus in your body, but the virus knows that there's a vaccine, so when you cough, it's just not in your droplets? I can't go in those droplets. The vaccine said so. What? And there were people who believed it. But more importantly, there were people who believed it because it was, what is Dan's gaslighting? It's lie often, lie confidently, and isolate people from the truth. That is exactly what they did with this COVID vaccine. They lied about it. It's safe and effective. It works. They lied often on every mainstream media network. They lied confidently. You got doctors, you got Fauci, you got these news anchors. They sound polished, professional. Even if you're sick and you're vaccinated, you can't spread it to anybody else. And then they isolated people from the truth. You went out on social media and said, hey, I don't know about these vaccines. Gone. Gone. And it worked on so many people. And now the repercussions of taking these things, I am so happy I didn't take it. I worked next to an urgent care at Sherwin-Williams. When I tested positive for COVID, I damn near threw myself a party. Actually, I did. I got Chinese food. I celebrated the China virus with Chinese food. I'm not even joking. And I was so excited about getting natural immunity, knowing that I would have an out from the vaccine. It was great. Are you going to get vaccinated? No, I had COVID. I have natural immunity. My immunity is better than yours, actually, because it's real. And I didn't throw some drug in my body. I don't know what the hell's going on. You remember Gupta's talking point, right? At the end of that clip? Even if you're infected, you can't spread it to someone else. Interesting. Rachel Madcow on MSNBC. Now it's MS Now. What does Vince call it? M Snow? I think it's so funny. I think he called it that. MS, or Dan calls it MSNOW. MS Now or MS Later. I don't know. Rachel Madcow on MSNBC. This is a golden clip, a throwback. But I always remember this. We're talking about the vaccine. So you want to combat vaccine misinformation? There is no greater example of misinformation than what Sanjay Gupta just said and what Rachel Maddow is about to show you in this cut coming up. Go ahead.
Right? Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person to person, potentially mutating and becoming more virulent and drug resistant along the way, now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
Wow.
A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus. The virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else.
Wow.
It cannot use a vaccinated person as a host to go get more people. That means the vaccines will get us to the end of this.
Oh. The virus stops with every vaccinated person. That means if it gets you, you can't pass it to anybody else. Gupta said the same thing. And I'm wondering where they got their talking points from, because it's the exact same talking points that you saw on both mainstream media networks, MSNBC and CNN. And we now know, and we knew then, that that was a load of garbage. It was a colossal load of BS. That if you were vaccinated and you got sick, that you couldn't spread it to someone else. Like I said, I know people. I worked with a few of them at Sherwin. You're out with COVID? What happened? I thought you were. Oh, it's a breakthrough case. Well, there damn sure seems to be a lot of breakthroughs. Breakthrough cases. Could you imagine if the smallpox vaccine was as effective as the COVID vaccine? We'd all have smallpox. Could you imagine? What are some other big vaccines out there that we take that we're supposed to these diseases? I'm blanking on them. Smallpox, measles, mumps. Could you imagine if the measles vaccine was as effective as the COVID vaccine? We'd all have the measles. And Nick, tuberculosis, did we get vaccinated for that too? Could you imagine if the tuberculosis vaccine was as safe, was as effective as the COVID vaccine? Meaning not effective. We'd all have tuberculosis. But Rachel Maddow, so confident the virus stops with every vaccinated person. It can't jump from person to person to person. Oh my God. It can't jump from person to person to person. Unbelievable. All right. One more on Fauci. And then I got to touch on Mamdani in a little bit. Just a quick, with this stupid city-run grocery stores and his doxing campaign that he's now on in New York City. But I want to play this cut from Bobby Kennedy. He was on with Laura Ingraham talking about this diary. And I'll tell you what, I had no idea until this diary came out. Fauci got vaccinated and then had an adverse reaction. Play Bobby Kennedy.
He was given a pardon prospectively from the last administration. We don't know if it was an auto pen pardon. It doesn't really matter for legality purposes. But Americans want to know, a lot of them, is there going to be any accountability for trillions of dollars lost, children's education destroyed, and public health industry reputation shattered?
Yeah, and millions of people injured. You know, that he lied about masks, he lied about social distancing, he lied about the transmission, he lied about natural immunity, he lied about the capacity, as you just said, of the vaccine to prevent infection, to prevent it. He got vaccinated, a very, very public press conference in January of 2020. And then 5 months later, he had, and this is the first time that we knew this from the diary, he had a pulmonary infarction, which is one of the adverse events that NIH, CDC, and FDA said are expected from the vaccine. He never told anybody. He got treated for it privately by the best doctors in America. At the same time, he was telling everybody that that was not an adverse event.
So he got the vaccine and then suffered a pulmonary infarction? Like a blood clot of sorts? And didn't tell anyone? Interesting. Anthony Fauci is one of the worst human beings that has ever walked the earth. I'm not ashamed of saying that. I'm not going to walk that back ever. The way he handled the AIDS epidemic, the way he handled COVID, the way he tortured dogs. Remember the beagles? This guy is an evil, evil MFer, guys. Evil. Evil. It's not that he got things wrong. It's that he intentionally lied about it. He knew he was BSing everybody. He was hiding things from the American people. He was exaggerating the fatality rate. He was forcing schools to shut down. He was consulting with government officials to shut down their states. He was not living by the rules that he expected you to live by. This guy is evil. And it kills me to know that there's not much federally that can be done about him. All right, let's move on. We got to do this quick with Mom Donnie because we are a little over time, but I want to go to Mom Donnie. He's proposing now these city-run grocery stores. They're finally here. He's going to run everything at a 30% cost reduction from retailers. Roll this cut, and I'll tell you how this is going to be dangerous on the other side.
Since 2019, food prices have soared at grocery stores around the country by roughly 30%, in fact. Talk to shoppers around the city, and you'll often hear the same frustration. Wages have not kept up. Making matters even worse, some corporations have built out technology that allows for something called surveillance pricing, collecting personal data to charge some people more than others for the same carton of eggs, for the same gallon of milk. All of this leaves too many New Yorkers feeling like groceries are out of reach. And that is frankly unacceptable, which is why city government is stepping in to make people's lives more affordable. Today, I am proud to announce a collection of essential staples that will be predictably 30% cheaper at all 5 of our city-run grocery stores. Here's how it will work. Once a month, our 5 city-run grocery stores will set prices for this core set of goods at 30% below typical retail prices. No exceptions, no gimmicks.
How are you going to pay for that, Zoran? Well, we'll get to that in just a second. Here's a great post from Billboard Chris. He's a great account over on X at Billboard Chris. I think he's Canadian, by the way. He's one of the good Canadians. Here's how communists collapse the food supply in 5 simple steps. City stores subsidize food prices, undercut private grocers, and private grocers close because they can't compete with the government. Demand and reselling empty city stores. Government forces supply. So when your private grocers close, there's now more demand at the city stores, right? So there's now less available supply. So now your demand and reselling the items that you buy from those city stores empty the city stores. Government forces suppliers and farmers to accept lower prices, which means suppliers will then cut production or stop producing those goods altogether because it's not worth it. They're losing money. Food shortages appear. Rationing and black markets follow. Markets of color, by the way. You can't say black markets. It's 2026. What are we doing? Food supply collapses, as you've seen in the Soviet Union, Venezuela, Cuba, and other places where price controls failed. Now, how does Mom Donnie plan to pay for all of this? Well, duh. He's going to tax you. Zoran Mamdani's going to tax you. Here's a good one. Mamdani effectively doxed wealthy New York City residents. Doxed them for this new second home tax. He's pied-à-terre tax or second home tax. He published a list of names of those who could be getting hit with this new tax and their addresses. Let me explain to you why he did this, by the way. This comes a day after he said, yeah, if Netanyahu shows up in the city, protest him. He wants riots and protests outside of the homes of the wealthy in New York City. He wants that because the goal of communism and the way it's ushered in easily is class warfare. The haves versus the have-nots. And so he's telling the have-nots, hey, here's a list of all the haves. Oh, by the way, protesting's cool, which it is, but the left doesn't protest, and we know that. You want to know the ironic thing about it? Here's the ironic thing about it. This on the New York Post. A bunch of A-listers who supported Mamdani, by the way, were on this list. The list of New Yorkers. Big names throughout the list include Cynthia Nixon, a devoted Mamdani supporter. Yep. So some of Mamdani's own supporters who promoted him all throughout his mayoral campaign. Yeah, she's on the list. Cynthia Nixon. How about Anna Wintour, that's her name. Also named on the list, as is her downtown address. Cynthia Nixon. Oscar-nominated director Darren Aronofsky is also among the celebrities to appear on the list. How about Woody Allen and Soon Yi Previn Allen? They're on the list. Goodness gracious, Anna Wintour she's on the list. She famously gushed that she was full of admiration for Mamdani. He just doxed you. He wants to send a bunch of have-nots to your home. If you are someone of any considerable wealth in New York City, you got to leave. You got to leave.
Isn't doxing illegal?
Of course it's illegal. But everything's legal when Mamdani does it.
Can they sue him?
It depends. Because, public tax records and all that, so it's technically not like... I mean, I don't know if, quote-unquote, doxing is necessarily illegal, but I guess it's illegal if you're telling people to do things. He's skirting it, But the point of the matter is you have supporters who are wealthy who he just handed on they might sue him, handed on a list. And everyone has the list. These people who passionately hate billionaires now know where these folks live. Maybe it's not their primary addresses. That doesn't matter. There's going to be riots outside of these buildings now if it gets bad enough. And Mamdani's going to be the reason why those people are there because he told them where to go. You think you're going to pay for the city grocery store because Cynthia Nixon and all those A-listers are going to wind up, paying the tax? They're going to move their money. I would. If I was in New York City, I'd be out of there. You got to get to a place where Mamdani can't touch you. All right, finally, I'd like to have a little bit of fun. We have a little bit of fun. The guys and I were talking about this before the show. First of all, on Shawn Farash Live, we're thinking of a Friday segment. Tell me in the live chat if you approve of this Friday segment. Every Friday, we're gonna troubleshoot and focus group and collaborate together, the chat and me, on new funny bits that I can do as Donald Trump, which I used to do all the time on TikTok Live. So we're thinking on Shawn Farash Live, that launches August 17th. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, rumble.com/Shawn, Bongino.com/Shawn. Go over there, find every link that's on there and subscribe to everywhere you can. All right? We need you to do that. So for this Friday segment, we're thinking of doing 5 minutes or so at the end. A fun way to go into the weekend, 5-10 minutes, kind of improving. You guys come up with some suggestions in the chat and I'll just improv them, and the ones that I like the most, I'll write down and we can turn those into bits. But they start here on the show, which is great. So I'm thinking of this, the diary's out. All right, the diary's out. I want you, because I see all these yeses, now they're answering the Friday question. But if you think this is a good idea, I want to see an American flag in the chat. If you think this is a good idea. The Trump diary. Donald Trump confessing his deepest, darkest secrets. Like, I told everybody I walked on the golf course today, but I drove the golf cart, but I drove it so beautifully. Right? It's the most beautiful golf cart in the history of the world. I got a call from the president of NASCAR. Says, sir, you're a great driver, sir. Or look at the chat. USA. Look at that chat. What about, look at that, that's insane. Look, that is nuts. The fact that it can move that quick is just out of control. How about this? Trump diary. I went to McDonald's and the ice cream machine was broken. And they were out of Diet Coke. I'm thinking of bombing the manager later, you know? You can't do that. You can't do that. They think they control the strait of Diet Coke. They're not going to get away with it. You think this is... Okay, so clearly the Trump diary is a good thing. Deepest, darkest secrets. For anyone who has suggestions, you could send them to me on social media for what should be in the Trump diary. We're going to have to run with this. This is great. And this will be the first bit that the Bongino Army and yours truly have come up with together. So that's a double yes. We have a yes on the motion to add that as a Friday segment on Shawn Farash Live, right? We have a yes on that motion. Last 10 or so minutes of the show, we'll improv together. We'll have a little bit of fun, little unique segment. That'll be good, like we used to do on TikTok Live. For those of you who follow me way back and we're part of that, right? And a yes on the Trump diary because the American flag's going down. Now we got Muttley showing up. All right, this is great. All right, here we go. All right, that's very good. Thank you very much. Did I just see someone say no?
There's one person.
There's one person saying
over and over
All
again.
right, well, you know what? You know what? The verdict is in. You've been overruled, sucker. All right? We're doing it. You're going in the diary. We're going to do it just because the one person doesn't want me to do it. We're going to do it. All right. Thank you so much for watching and listening today. Do not forget to subscribe to Shawn Farash Live anywhere you get your podcast. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Bongino.com/Shawn. SHAWN. You have to spell it right or we're going to have problems. Do you understand? We're going to have a lot of problems if you spell it wrong. You can't do that. Okay? Shawn Farash Live, we launch for realsies, August 17th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, rumble.com/Shawn. That's where you can exclusively get the video product. Audio is available anywhere you get your podcast, so please subscribe. Haley Caranilla comes up at noon. Vince, tomorrow morning, he is the king of... Hey, Vince Colonnese, you dropped this, sir. You are the king of morning podcast. You dropped this. I think we're also going to have him on the show for his regular Wednesday appearance tomorrow as well. Vince at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Haley Caranilla at noon. Super excited. So make sure you check those guys and gals out. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast to Shawn Farash Live. Make sure you subscribe to this show too, of course, the Dan Bongino Show, rumble.com/Bongino. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I will see you back here live tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, rumble.com/Bongino. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. As President Trump says, we will never give up, we will never give in, and we will never, ever surrender. Thank you so much for being here. Haley's coming up in just a little bit. God bless you. God bless America. And thank you for your attention to this matter.
I'm Haley Caranilla,
host of Vince,
host of Scrolling with Haley.
You can always catch my show right here
on the Bongino Report.
Live, 8 a.m. Eastern, weekday mornings.
Weekdays at noon. If you miss it, no worries. The show will always be
right here
and anywhere you find podcasts. Thanks for watching.